The process of figuring yourself out starts at birth and ends at death. I'm a little bit closer to the D word than I am the B word. The pressure is on. In those 63 years, I have felt blocked by unknown forces and powerless against anxiety or fear when making the big moves to follow my dreams. And maybe you felt the same. Years of therapy and self-help books didn't focus on the innate worldviews, the hidden rules that blinded me to solutions I just couldn't conceive. These unconscious beliefs locked me into the same frustrating situations, spinning my wheels and forever preparing, but void of results, afraid to take the leaps. But I found a solution in the form of 9 rules that led me to understand the enemy within, and most important, how to discover and use them to your advantage, to take back the narrative of your life, the life that you want to manifest. So life isn't easy, but let's give this a try. Okay, so I think I started reading at like age 4 or 5, and I'm sure that when I went to the bookstore with my mom or my dad or whomever, even at the school library, I was probably on the self-help aisle. I had, oh my gosh, a library full of self-help books by the time I was, 20, 25. Well curated, if I may add. I have since dwindled it down to just a few books. My Pema Chodron books, and then a few here. Number 1 being The Highly Sensitive Person. Highly recommend it. But my journey did not stop on the self-help aisle. No, my journey also went on into the metaphysical. So here is my library of like astrology books and stuff like that. That's extensive. The numerology, the palmistry, and all the other stuff, it kind of went by the wayside. Astrology is my mojo. It's the language I speak, the language I understand. But in that journey to try to figure myself out, and I highlighted all those self-help books, right? I did study summaries for quick reference. I never got to the root of understanding why I had the worldview I did. So fast forward, 2013. I'm on the elliptical. I'm writing my first novel, and I'm listening to Led Zeppelin. The song In the Evening comes on. And Robert Plant mentions the word rules in the song. It was like the sea parted. I hopped off the elliptical and I'm laughing at the stuff that's coming into my head. So I'm claircognizant. I get knowings. And I'm writing these 2 rules down. And I'm thinking about my characters, right? And I jump back on the elliptical and then more start coming down. 9 of them. I thought it was about the characters, but it was a whole lot more. A line formed down the middle of the page, dividing what I had written down. On one side were rules or worldviews that contracted our power. On the other side, there were those that expanded it. What I would later discover is that these rules are given prior to birth. These unconscious beliefs are buried deep within us, and they form our worldview. One set are the self-imposed limits. It defines the challenges that we'll see in life. The other set of rules is the divine light within. Still, those creative worldviews, you can go overboard with those. Here's an example of what someone's rules might look like. They allude to the major battles or issues that will be in their life that they need to resolve, and they'll focus around the same theme. They'll just be on a different stage. But once you understand the root cause of the battles, once you understand the psychological and spiritual work that you're invited to do, it changes the limits of your consciousness. We can blame others, but we are the choice makers. We make the choice whether to stay or go, whether to change or to accept, whether to hold the power or submit to someone else's. Knowing the hidden rules takes off the blinders to these hidden worldviews that we have. So, for example, know-it-all versus what's underneath that. A know-it-all rule might spin on research and never be satisfied with having enough information to make important decisions in their life, or they could have a need to prove superiority over others, and that could get in their way of creating the life they want. What's underneath that could be the gift of curiosity, that they won't take no for an answer this time around, regardless of the obstacles. But together, It could either equal spinning on important decisions in life and milestones, or it could mean they have great determination and clarity of purpose. My husband and I have been married for almost 40 years, I think. I've lost track. We've moved around together a couple of times, and the last place that we moved to, we said, this is going to be our forever home. We lived there for 25 years. But things started to happen in the state that didn't align with what we needed. It no longer resonated with us. That happened at about year 10. We lived there 25 years. We kept pushing things off. You know, we had kids. We had moved my mom there to be closer as she got older. And, you know, we knew the roads. We knew where things were. We had doctors established. And the house worked for us. We had Narnia. I mean, our backyard was awesome. And we didn't want to leave the wildlife that was there. And the kids were in school. We hadn't established a life there. I will add, I am very much an introvert, so I didn't have a whole lot of friends, so it didn't bother me to leave. But we didn't know where we wanted to go. But the decision at this age, because it's going to be the last place that you're going to live, likely, not to be fatalistic, but whatever, you know, it's just life, right? But we knew that this decision was an important one if we were going to move, and so it was easier to put it off. But on November 6th of 2024, that changed. And this seems like a great time to share two of the rules that I'm working with in my lifetime, how they influence the choices that I make in life, the false beliefs that they mask, and the avoidance techniques and anxiety that they create. It's where I give my power away. I'll use astrology here, but you don't need to know astrology to know your rules. Believe me, they've been at work inside you, probably since early childhood. But you just need to recognize when they're popping up, like a good old game of whack-a-mole. The first rule is life isn't a fairy tale. It's one of those restrictive rules. It's formed by the connection of Sun and Saturn in my birth chart. When you get your sun assignment in your birth chart, it's reflective of a new path that you need to follow. So the soul comes here with some kind of unconscious memory. For Leo, it was a memory of being duped by others with more power or knowledge, or by being humiliated by your use of power or knowledge. The gist of this sun dynamic is that your dreams are above your pay grade, and you're here to regain self-confidence, to learn to speak up by experiencing themes of resistance to speaking up. You learn by being bullied, by receiving really strong negative feedback, or abuses of power against you, especially when you're a child. There's always hope is the relationship between the planet Mars and Jupiter in my chart. Mars was in Gemini when I was born, and when Mars is in Gemini, it's an invitation to keep your eyes and options open, to stay alert, to listen with all your senses. There are feelings of divine betrayal when life is a fairy tale is involved. It kind of says don't trust your divine power or the divine power. So the invitation of there's always hope is to participate in it, to own it, to use it, to feel it. It can't be empty words, but it can be miracle thinking and hard lessons in dismissing the psychic nature that you have for logic. But on that morning, when my husband told me the news, I was in disbelief. He was done. He's like, we're done. We're out of here. And I'm like, yeah, we are. And as I said that, as I'm leaning against the kitchen counter in our house, I was like, oh my gosh. Two rules came to mind. Life isn't a fairy tale, because I had made so many excuses for staying. I wasn't happy there. I felt confined. It just wasn't the right space for me anymore, but I had put it off, made excuses. You know, just deal with it. Life isn't a fairy tale. You're going to have problems anywhere you go. I had put off all of the very clear signs that I was getting to go, and instead gotten involved in other groups, and instead just dismissed certain indicators that, hey, Melissa, it's time to go. I thought, no, things will change. The tides will turn. They didn't. Where are we going to go? This is a good time to talk about two planets that help form your rules. My husband has his sun in Scorpio. Now, your sun is what's important to you, right? Plays very much a role in this particular decision. What's important to you? It's just one of many things that the sun does. His is in Scorpio, and so when you're born with a sun in Scorpio, what's important for you to do is to experience crisis. Now, this can be self-made. I will suggest that my husband sometimes, oftentimes, it is. And so you let things get to a crisis point. So then you realize your inner reserves, your inner resources, and you learn who you can trust. There's a lot of trust involved in Scorpio when you get a sun in Scorpio. Other planets too. Not to get too deep into astrology here. So Mars is your get stuff done planet. And Mars, for him, is in Virgo. So Scorpio is a water sign and it's fixed. It's a cup of water with one of those little swirly things at the bottom, constantly keeping things moving. Scorpio doesn't focus on too many things at once. It focuses on one thing, and it likes that to be a crisis. It's great in a crisis. If you're having a crisis, call your Scorpio friend. But back to Mars. Mars is your get stuff done planet. His is in Virgo. Virgo is Earth, and it's mutable. So it likes to look at its options. But Virgo is very cautious in that. It analyzes, it weighs, it spins on analysis sometimes. No shade to the Virgos. I too have prominent Virgo in my chart. Love a Virgo. You need a Virgo in your life. Makes it much better. And they're so kind-hearted. I have many Virgo friends. Okay, so me, I have a sun in Leo. A sun in Leo suggests that somewhere in the last life, you experienced great humility. And this time, you are here to reestablish your self-confidence. And you do that through expressing yourselves. Because here in this world, we always get opposition to what we think, right? You know, we have other people in the world. It's not just us, right? So Leo is here to learn through feedback the self-confidence to do what it wants to do, what's in its heart, to find joy again. My Mars, my get stuff done planet, is in Gemini. It's an air sign. It is also mutable, like my husband's, but my Gemini Mars wants to pull in a bunch of different things, do a bunch of different things at the same time. It is here, a Mars in Gemini that is, to be curious, to be more observant this time. Marry that to that Leo sun. It's like, okay, last time there was great humiliation experienced and you didn't pick up some of the clues. So this time, Mars in Gemini, how you get stuff done is through getting all those clues together by making sense of things differently, versus my husband wants to sit and analyze. Now, do you see the rub in how we are going to approach this decision? My husband, he wanted somewhere in the Northeast, but he also wanted a warm climate. Go marry those two things together. There alone is a crisis right there, right? God, I love him. So yeah, Northeast, warm climate, and he wanted rural. And I, on the other hand, wanted the Midwest. Love the values there. And I had a favorite city in mind that I was hoping he would love, but he always said, the only way I'll go there is in a casket. So I ruled out that place because, you know, life isn't a fairy tale, right? But I wanted somewhere north. I wanted a historic home. He wanted a new home. And I wanted, walkable towns. I wanted to be in the city. I wanted trains. I wanted, public transport to be able to go into the city, but, come back out to the suburbs. So we wanted very different things. But what we both agreed on is we wanted a place that had more diversity, that had better laws for humanity, we'll just put it that way. So where do we go? My husband wanted to visit 25 cities, do an exhaustive list. I wanted to visit one city. I wanted that miracle solution. We just had to visit one city. We knew it right off the bat. I wanted that one city to be my dream city. The one that my husband said he would only move to if he were in a casket. But I didn't want him to be in a casket when we moved there. That was my fairy tale. But I never said it, because life isn't a fairy tale. So as a Leo sun, you keep a lot of your dreams inside yourself until you get confident enough to express them. Next, we had to figure out how much money do we have to work with. My husband guy that he is, lowballed what he felt the house was worth. Of course, in me, it was panic because I had my ideas of what the house was worth and how much money we would have to spend. But this creates a crisis in his mind because now he's like, okay, we can't afford that much. We really have to downsize. He goes through this big emotional thing when he creates these crises. But we wanted to set money aside. I had hired a real estate agent by November 8th. She came in. She did an evaluation of the house. It was considerably higher than my husband's estimate, and it was a little bit lower than mine. Life isn't a fairy tale, right? The next question we had to face was timing. We're in November. The holiday season is upon us. My youngest is graduating from university in December, right? My husband wanted to be moved out by like January 1. So there's a lot of crisis going on in the house because I don't think he realized all the work that had to be done in doing this because I'm really, really organized. And so I usually handle all the moves that we had done. My mom, who had lived there for 25 years and had created a very close relationship with another family, and that would be difficult for her to leave. We land at the airport. It's pretty quiet. Big, big city. And then meet with a real estate agent the next day to look at about 5 homes, not just the homes, but the areas too that we had identified. And we got through the first 5 homes and we said, okay, we're going to go have lunch and then let's reconvene the next day. We go back to the hotel, my husband takes a nap and I go for a walk. So we get together at dinner that night, we start talking, we go have dinner. And he calls it and he said, this isn't the place. Life isn't a fairy tale person and there's always hope. I was about to walk into saying, okay, we can make this place work, because I was afraid that life wasn't going to offer me more. So in the lounge that night, as we're talking and we're going through Zillow and he's realizing how much work it is to find a place, we're narrowing down the areas. We looked at the West Coast and that was quickly narrowed out or eliminated. And then we're looking at the East Coast and we're looking at the Midwest and he's seeing the criteria that I go through. So we go to bed that night and oh my gosh, it felt like just the weight of the world. Neither of us slept very well. But he woke up the next morning and he came over to me and he said, I think we need to consider the place that you want to go to. I was ecstatic. I mean, I'm very calm now. I was like, oh my gosh, inside. Life is a fairy tale. Life is a fairy tale. And then I'm like, no, life isn't a fairy tale. Life isn't a fairy tale. But there's always hope, but there's always hope. And so you can see how these beliefs kind of shape what you're willing to see and what you can't see. But knowing these rules has helped me understand what I'm really struggling with, what the root cause of my dilemmas in life are. It's my belief systems that I have. Once these rules are made conscious, they lose their power. These rules aren't there to make life difficult for you. They aren't there to sabotage you. They're there to help you realize how powerful you are. The agency that you have in this lifetime to make it what you want it to be. It raises your consciousness in how to face the obstacles that you see. We all see different obstacles. That's inherent in our worldview. It's why we get the chart that we do when we're born, how those planets interact with each other, the aspects, the conversations they form. Once you begin to understand them and you see how they're getting in your way, you can change your approach. It's not like you do it overnight, though. I mean, it takes a lifetime. But those small victories, those small wins of recognizing when those rules are at play, well, it did more for me than all those self-help books that I read.
How do you find your hidden rules? Well, everyone is born with this unconscious material that is unique to their journey in life. Early childhood triggers the awareness of these rules, unlocking your unique process of discovery and healing. Deeply emotional childhood memories and resonating cliches hint at your hidden rules, the themes the rules are asking you to master in this lifetime.
Think back to childhood situations that really resonated with you. Were you bullied? Something like that might resonate with you. For others, they just go on. But if it resonated with you being bullied, then think about what that experience teaches you about yourself. They can also be key phrases like, life isn't a fairy tale, or don't make mountains out of molehills, or, life is difficult and then you die. That's a little bit severe. Stay in your lane. That's another one, these phrases that really resonate with you. Those are things that may be a tunnel, a hallway to a light to show you how these unwritten, unspoken, unconscious rules are affecting your life. These rules might just resonate. These key phrases that you use: stay in your lane, life is difficult, and then you die. Life isn't a fairy tale. Women can't trust men. Women don't need men. All these different phrases that you can come up with, right? The other thing, what I do is I just ask. And again, I'm claircognizant, but you can look around you. You'll get hints. What are my rules that I need to be aware of to have more agency in my life, to reclaim my power, to reclaim my ability to reach my dreams, to manifest them? And I'll see you next time.